iRacing, you wanted the best, you got them 4 abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Lacking 2 of the most winningest drivers in Grand Prix Legends history, we find ourselves with giant question marks over who will be the most likely to take the reins. So far, Stefan Zeitweger showed everyone the way at Monza by taking the win in the opening round. Now we arrive at a similarly fast circuit, Watkins Glen. Will Stefan be able to repeat his performance? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 2 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is multi-time Grand Prix, is Samuel Ryman with us, standing in for Mick Claridge, and behind the booth is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sam, much like Monza, the Glen is another track this car is actually raced on, although in another layout. Tell us about the former home of the U.S. Grand Prix.
Well, Joe, in all of the times that I've won this championship, I always enjoyed coming to this circuit. But what you always need to remember about Watkins Glen is we have different configurations, and the tricky thing for these drivers today is the fact that we are racing the inner loop. So this car, the Lotus 49, doesn't like turning. Honestly, it doesn't really like straights. It doesn't really like anything. But now you're throwing 4 turns all connected together within, a couple of seconds of another. It is going to provide some entertainment during today's race. And hopefully our leaders and the field will be able to get through cleanly, but who knows what we're going to see. Let's give you an idea of what it's like with our GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Ben Zocco and the GSRC Lotus 49, so let's do a lap around Watkins Glen. Coming down to the 90, the long braking zones of this car means it'll be even easier than usual to overshoot your apex. Also, because it's so difficult to avoid wheel spin when on the throttle, it isn't as fast to swing out as wide as you would in other cars. But the good news is, because you can't take the S's flat out in the Lotus, it's not quite as critical that you get an incredible launch off that first corner. If anything, setting yourself up to find the power before this final right-hander at the top of the hill will serve you best. Just keep your wits about you, because you'll need to be counter-steering your way through. Down the backstretch, before you know it, you've got to brake for the inner loop. You can take a fair bit of curb here, but the car is still going to be dancing around as you try to thread your way through this difficult chicane. From out of there, you immediately swing it into the carousel, where it's best to keep the car tucked down nice and tight to the curb. On the exit, watch out that you don't slide out of the banking. You'll have very little time before you got to bring it across and brake hard for the chute. Losing it here is going to be a race ender, because there's no runoff to save you on the outside of the corner. We continue to plunge downhill now into the toe of the boot. The car will compress at the bottom, but coming out the other side, you've got this giant hill that needs you to swing your speed through the corner as best you can. That's because it's actually a fairly long stretch down to the heel of the boot, where drivers often try and overtake if they're close enough. Stay off the tiny little curve to the inside, because it'll upset the car horribly. But this is another spot where you have very little time on the power before you're setting up for the left-hander that returns us to the main circuit. With almost no downforce, the lack of grip on this off-camber corner becomes even more apparent and frustrating. Ease back onto the power, and now we come to the penultimate corner. In most cars, this is frighteningly fast, but even the banking doesn't keep you from needing to slow up quite a bit to make it through. And then there's that scary final turn with the Armco sitting right at the edge of the track. Setting yourself up to be clean on the power and not coming in too hot will serve you well. But hopefully you've now finished a lap around Watkins Glen.
You see a lap around Watkins Glen where I'm not tripping over my tongue as we follow along board the Lotus 49. Now, let's take a look at the championship, which is pretty predictable if you watched last season's race. Of course, Zeitweger leading the way. Rob Olenek is following close behind, only 5 points back, and Price could yet still get in this thing as well. Don't forget about Ben Zocco, who has returned after a slight break. He seems to have found his sea legs pretty well with that 4th place finish. And then, of course, we have Gary Teal, who has always been strong and has taken a couple wins over the years in the Grand Prix Legends series. We also have an F2 Drivers' Championship and Amateurs Championship, Sam. And how is that looking?
Well, much like the opening round of the season, Joe, it's quite close, and they pretty much are ranked in the order that they finished at the opening round at Monza. And so Eric Luckel currently has that by 3 markers over David Rossi. Of course, this could all get shuffled up very quickly into the season. The great thing about it, of course, is it gives these drivers who might not necessarily be fighting for the race wins or the podiums, it gives them a chance to come out here, compete, and get a good finish, and maybe they'll be an F1 driver next season.
We'll watch and see who gets promoted as we continue to follow that as throughout the season. You can see we're starting to get some times in on the board, but first we're going to look at the Constructors' Championship. Of course, they do this a little bit uniquely. The Constructors' Championship is the Nations Cup, so this is all sorted out by what country you hail from, like they did in 1967. Zeitweger helping with put Austria on the top of the board for the first time ever in this series. Olenek with the U.S. is going to try and bring them up and give them another championship. It's been a bit for that. UK also in the mix, as they usually are. Mick Claridge typically contributing those points, but this time it is Price. And then Australia and Germany round out your top 5. What do we have for the race details here, Sam? We might have some viewers who haven't watched the Grand Prix Legends before.
Well, it is an official series on iRacing, so that means it has to conform to iRacing's rules, which means it's the second of 12 weeks of racing. However, this series, this split on this day of a week, that's what the points for this season, for this championship, are going to be based off of, and that only includes 2 drop weeks as opposed to iRacing's regular 4 drop weeks. The race distance is going to be 18 laps long today. Setups are open. This is an open setup series, and the point structure is also unique to what we do here in this championship. We pay down to 25th, which is good news for everyone today. Everyone's going to get points. You get a point, because we have 24 cars.
Still, this is a case where I'm assuming everybody's going to want to try and do their best with a field smaller than what they pay out to. Now, if you are watching for the first time, welcome. Make sure and subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network while you're here. All you got to do that is click on the big red button that says subscribe. You'll get all of Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends in your YouTube feed. So far in our qualifying, Zeitweger has the provisional pole, and he's only done 1 lap. I guess he either felt good enough or had a mistake, so he hasn't come around for another one. Now, Roman Pawlowski is a ways off, Sam. This does not bode well for the rest of the field. Half a second, and Roman's already completed 2 laps, so we've got to wait to see if anybody else can maybe improve and get a little bit closer to our current points leader.
Yeah, I was going to try and see if Gary Till could do it. Of the 5 drivers you saw of our top 5 finishers at Monza who were on our points graphic at the start of the show, Stefan Zeitweger, Rob Olenek, and Gary Till are here today. And the easy way to remember them is they actually have the highest I ratings in the field. So Stefan is in the 1, Rob is in the 2, Gary is in the 3, and right now they're qualified 1st, 3rd, and 5th. Let's see. Well, here we are. Rob Olenek on track. How many laps has he got?
Didn't improve. Yep, okay, that was the second one. And I'm not sure that we've really got anybody else out on track who will be able to step that up. We're watching Johnny Bell, who's on his second lap. They're starting to run out of time. It takes a fairly long time to get around this version of the circuit. Even in old F1 machinery, it takes nearly 2 minutes to get around. So his 151.3 is good enough for 18th place. Let's see if he can improve, Sam. He's got 2 corners to do it.
You know, of course, iRacing, when the clock hits 0 in qualifying in an official series, that is the end of qualifying. So Johnny Bell will be able to get to the line in time. Currently, he has a 151.3. He's down in 18th on the timing sheets. And now he comes across the line. And I think he improves his time to 150.7, but stays 18th place. So we got on screen here. We're going to Colin Bentley. Nope.
Yep, for Colin is the one we're looking at. He's also completed his 2 laps, but time is out. So the grid is now set. Let's go through your starting order for today. It's going to be Stefan Zeitweger with another pole, but can he convert it to a win? It's looking good for that. Roman Pawlowski will be starting in second next to him. Row 2 has Rob Olenek to the inside. Marco Kika, who's been on an upswing of form, will be P4. Gary Teal starts in 5th. Ian Haycox, 6th today. Row 4 has Daniel Sadro to the inside. Outside will be Hugh Haycox. Then in 9th, it'll be Philippe Burkhardt. And David Rossi rounds out your top 10.
Bill Tyler will be starting from the 11th position. Alongside him is Nicholas Morelli. Marlon Williams will be starting from 13th ahead of Oscar Garcia. Pascal Tremblay, he qualifies a decent 15th place ahead of Grillo Forkelin. Xavier Busquets will be starting back in 19th place ahead of Johnny Bell, whose lap we saw on the screen. Colin Coker and Gary Anderson were the last 2 drivers with competitive qualifying times. Billy Wright, Colin Bentley, Don Good, and Philippe Girard did not get a lap time.
Billy Bob, the number 8 there, starting 21st. He is out of position for sure. He typically is up in the top 10. So he's got some work to do as we watch our field of 24 grid up. We're just waiting on Gary Teal at this point. Then we're ready to go for 18 laps. Hopefully he will be able to make the grid considering he started well far up, and he will. So that will bring the engine's revs up. The lights will come up as we wait for them to go out. Green flag is out. Zeitweger with a good start off the line. Not so great from Pawlowski, and he knows it. Immediately covers off down to the inside. Kika has nowhere to go. Almost gets into his gearbox as everybody woes up. A little bit of 3 wide as they try to weave their way through the 90. So far, so good, and I think we got a clean start.
Yeah, there was almost contact between Johnny Bell and Xavier Busquets there towards the back. I don't think Rob Olenek got a great launch off the line, Joe, but he was able to hold on to 3rd place. And now they're coming to the inner loop. This is where I'm expecting to see some action.
This is one of the first passing opportunities that they've got other than the 90, but it's mostly single file I'm seeing.
Oh, one car spinning and 2 cars colliding. Forkelin spun and he got into Johnny Bell. So Forkelin spun, Bell got into him, and that's 2 casualties already.
Poor Johnny Bell just had no place to go. We'll go back to the replay in a bit. Hopefully they're able to continue on without having to come into the pits, because usually you don't see pit stops in this series. Still, your leaders have not changed. Zeitweger first, Pawlowski second, Olenek third, and Kiko fourth. They now come up to the heel of the boot, getting ready to finish the extra addition to this track compared to the short version. And Zeitweger already pulling the gaps. Go ahead, Sam.
We saw a bit of a challenge for 5th going into the boot section. Haycox was looking on Teal, but as they went through the boot, Teal was able to gap him a little bit, and now Haycox has had to go on the defensive because he's got Daniel Sadro behind him in 7th place.
That is Ian Haycox. We got 2 Haycoxes here today as usual. Ian, the higher of the 2, in 6th position. This is really one of our closest battles up at the top of the field. Good run onto the front stretch from Dan Sadro, and he's going to look to the inside down into the 90. Thinks better of it, though. Stays in line, maybe looking for a little bit of slipstream now as they climb the hill.
think Ian Haycock's is one of the easiest cars to spot in the entire field with this lime green and orange livery. Unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to spot if it gets shuffled back in the field, and Daniel Sadro might be thinking of doing exactly that to him. However, there's not really much of an aerodynamic slipstream you get in these cars, especially at a twisty circuit such as this. So, Sadro's not able to do anything, and Ian Haycock remains in 6th place.
So Johnny Bell, the only one that had to go in. Oh, and Bill Tyler had an issue. He also had it with Xavier Boscus once again in the inner loop. I kind of wondered if this was going to be a problem area.
Yeah, and Boscus is pulling it to a halt as we speak, so he's going to be our second. Actually, we've got pit road is getting a little busy, unfortunately, now with Bill Tyler, Xavier Boscus, and Johnny Bell all having towed their cars. Now we'll get a replay of exactly what happened.
Watching from on board the Frenchman. Car had spun way up ahead of him, and he tried to take evasive maneuvers. Unfortunately, he just could not get out of the way. As we come back to the lead, Pawlowski responding to Zeitweger has pulled it in from 0.8 of a second last time around down to 0.3 of a second now. So someone's stepping up to the plate.
Yeah, of course, the difficult thing with that inner loop being there, not only are we seeing all these casualties early on, but normally the best place to make a pass at Watkins Glen for these cars is into the carousel, because they don't have to deal with the inner loop. They can get a nice slipstream on the long straight and make it happen. However, with that inner loop, the braking zone is much earlier. You can't really do as much for the slipstream, and that's going to make it harder to pass. And right now, as long as Stefan doesn't make any errors, he should be able to hold on to this lead.
Still being hounded, though, by that number 4. He's going to wait in those tire tracks. They're starting to break away. You can see in third, Rob Olnick still clinging on at about 0.8 back. Oh, and Hugh Haycox has had a problem once again in the inner loop. Every single lap, we've had at least one car that has had an off. This was a single car incident, though.
Yeah, maybe tires are struggling to get up to temperature. When we come back to live action, that was a pretty neat battle we had on screen there with Hugh spinning around. This is now a battle for 9th and 10th between Philippe Urquhart and Nicholas Morelli, and it looks like Philippe has won that battle now.
Yep, Urquhart.
Marco Kika has just made a mistake coming out of a boot section, and Gary Teal takes 4th place.
See if we can get a replay on that pass. That was nice stuff from Gary Teal to sneak by. Good catch from Kika as well. There you see Kika heading into the heel of the boot, just outbrakes himself slightly. And that was Teal, actually, that we were on, who gets to the inside and heads on through as Kika tries to return to the surface. Now, you're talking about tires coming up to temperature. I'm not sure that they're really struggling with temperature. If we take a look at the weather, it is 115 degrees Fahrenheit on the track. It is boiling hot out there. So they have got to be slipping and sliding around.
Yeah, I wouldn't normally think it would be that hot September time in New York, but there you go, as we're watching Billy Bob here. So if I'm a spectator right now, I'm dragging my deck chair to the inner loop to see who our next victim will be this lap and see if they all get through it cleanly.
It looks like Billy Bob did. He's on the back of Nicholas Morelli, coming up to that battle we were watching earlier. In fact, there's 3 cars right in front of him. Urquhart next up, and then David Rossi in 8th position. I mentioned Wright was out of position, and he's been making good on his race pace despite not managing to get a lap time in qualifying. Great launch off of the chutes. He looks to the inside. No defense from Morelli. He's going to give him the inside down into the toe of the boot. See if he can accelerate cleanly off the corner. A little bit shallower, but still much better off of the turn. So Billy Bob Wright solidifies 10th. Next up, going to be Urquhart.
I'll give you an update that our last car running, Philippe Girard, down in 21st place, got through the inner loop safely, so lap 4 finally breaks the curse there. As we watch this battle going on in the midfield, everyone's finding their rhythm. And so we're watching the middle of the field. I was just paying attention to the back of the field. But Joe, I think we still need to keep an eye up front because there's not a lot of distance between our two leaders.
You're absolutely right. It's only 3/10 between Zeitvegger and Pawlowski. Stefan, our winner from round 1, if you're just joining us, and had a massive gap in pole, but seems to have not been able to retain that sort of distance here in race pace. We might want to go back to Billy Bob because he got a great run off the 90. He had to check up coming into the S's. Still, he is very close behind Philippe Urquhart. And if he could get that little bit of slipstream that they do offer coming up the backstretch, maybe he could have something. I think he's a little too far back.
Now, Joe, he takes a peek there, but nothing happening. You've had a little bit more experience in this car with me. I know it's an open setup. How much of those setup changes can you do to help the aerodynamics, to help your straight line speed, or is it all chassis space?
It's all chassis space. There's nothing you can do on the aerodynamics. I can tell you, and definitely hanging around Mick, as looks like Urquhart's got a good run here. In fact, it might be Urquhart changing positions. He's looking on Rossi. Unfortunately, that actually plugs him up because that's Billy Bob right around his outside. He can't quite keep the grip. And they're going to stay in position, still there, very close. Philippe with another look to the inside on Rossi, down into the heel of the boots, and still no change.
This is 8th to 11th, these 4 cars, because we got Nicholas Morelli. Oh, and off goes Philippe, and hard into the wall, and that might be his day done.
Did he dip a wheel off into the grass, or what happened here?
Could have been under braking. These cars don't behave too well under brakes, but...
Yeah,
oh, no, he did get the grass.
Just clipped it, and that sent him immediately spinning into the wall with a very hard hit. To answer your question before, from one thing that I learned even before I came and commentated with Mick in the booth, he helped educate me on tweaking the differential in this car. It makes a big difference on how it handles as we come back to our leaders. Zeitvegger still in front of Pawlowski. So I have a feeling a lot of these drivers messing with those, and as well with the temperatures. As soon as they saw it was hot, they fiddle with the tire pressures a lot in this series.
Right, going on Rossi into the inner loop, and Rossi doesn't put up much of a fight. Right, gets the position.
Wow, making quick work through this field. It was not long ago that he was down in 11th, now up to 8th, but he's got a big gap up to Daniel Sadro, so he's got some work to do. Let's take a look at Marco Kika. Ever since his mistake, he's gotten back up to the rear of Gary Teal. The number 3 has a mirror full of Finn.
And Ian Haycox is not too far off here, but running in 6th place. He's kind of broken away from the pack that had been hounding him from behind, and now he might be thinking about 4th by the time this day is through.
So the battle for the spots just off the podium as they come back to the main circuit. Getting close to halfway through this race now. Nobody really close enough to make an attack in this group. Kika going to have to set himself up for a run up the backstretch. Been fascinating to see how things are shaping up without Michel Dudignon and without Mick Claridge running this season, at least a full season in the case of Michel Dudignon. They've been our champions for the majority of the previous seasons, only broken up by one of the drivers here, Rob Olenek, who runs 3rd, who had a phenomenal job to take a championship around a very topsy-turvy season just a couple of seasons ago. Now up on the backstretch as we ride on board with Ian Haycock, still giving chase. He is nowhere near. The other 2 are closed up, but once again, Kika not able to take advantage as they weave through the inner loop.
You talk about the the opportunity that this could be bringing to all the drivers, you know, with our two biggest names not racing full-time this season. Pawlowski, Olenek, Teal, Kika, they may have all been thinking about the championship. And this new guy, Stefan, comes in and says, not so fast, people, I'm here.
Absolutely. As we take a look at Good way back in 15th position, trying to get that 15th spot away from Coker ahead of him. Donnie B. Good takes a little bit of a peek to the inside of the carousel and might be able to get something in. They need to watch out because Julio for Colin is not far behind. But look at that, finding the grip on the low line. Don Good bumps himself up to 15th.
That's a nice little run he is going after starting in 23rd place. So that moves him up 8 positions this race. Unless he loses it, because Coker takes a look down the inside. Good did not get through that turn very well.
Colin trying what he can to sneak through, but Don's not going to allow him in. Shuts the door coming through the heel of the boot. He does leave a little bit of a gap to the apex. I've been impressed with Don Good making steady progress forward in the field. Has been a back marker in the past, but has really started to find his way into the mid-pack in recent seasons.
Yeah. Perseverance is normally... oh, wow, I think Roman Pawlowski just had the big moment in the inner loop. He's recovered it, but I think he's got slowdown. That's going to cost him second place.
We got action on screen. Contact between Kika and Teal. And Teal manages to hold him off, but they actually came together, and Kika looks a little slow now. Hopefully he didn't get any damage from that touch. Ian Haycock's not able to do anything with it.
The inner loop filled with drama this lap.
It really is. It's filled with drama this whole race, I'd say. I think we got a replay on the Pawlowski incident. Let's hold on 1 second. Let's see if Ian Haycock has anything for Kika, because he was slow off the toe of the boot. And if they separate, then we'll have a chance to peek over at what happened to Pawlowski. Looks like nothing doing there. Let's take a jump over now that Olenek has gotten into second place and see how this all unfolded.
Well, Pawlowski has been sliding around a little bit. Here's the contact we saw in the middle of the field, Joe.
Here we got Pawlowski now.
Yeah, you see, he makes a bit of a mistake, and it just, you know, upsets him. He gets the first bit a little wrong, and by the end, he's skipping over the grass, and that's a slowdown penalty. But he'd been sliding around a little bit before that, and he's been sliding around a little bit after that as well. So I don't know what's going on, but Pawlowski looking a little bit uncomfortable at the moment.
That was a fantastic catch. Quick hands. There's one more glance at the incident with Kika and Teal. It was ambitious, but Teal was having none of it, and so he retains that 4th place. We're down to 10 to go now, and you could see that battle for 4th still relatively close, but now they're being joined. Them tussling has allowed Daniel Sadro to get within striking distance. Daniel becoming a familiar name here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Also races in the Weekend Warriors, a little bit slower car, but also very much a driver's car, as Ian Haycock's getting a little bit more aggressive on Marco Kika now, poking his nose in here and there.
I just love how the top 7 cars right now all started in the top 7. There really haven't been a lot of position changes there, and the guy in 8th place started 21st. So seeing 2 different races going on right now, but this should get exciting in the final 10 laps.
Clearly a lot harder to make up positions up at the top, and that's not good news for Billy Bob Wright, who still is about 6 seconds back from the next car. I think he's sort of met his limit. Wow, that was a big slide from Ian Haycock's wheel spin off of turn 9, and that cost him some space up to Kika. We got another little group back in the pack. David Rossi, ever since being overtaken by Wright, has been dropped by him. And instead, he's got to worry about behind Nicholas Morelli and Hugh Haycox following in his tire tracks. This is a good run from Hugh. He's going to look to the inside. No defense from Nick Morelli. And in fact, he breaks a little early, lets Hugh by. The Brit now up to 10th.
As those guys went by pit road, I noticed Philippe Gerard has pulled into the pits. Don't know what that's about. He was having a quiet race towards the back. Hopefully he'll get back out there. We'll continue to watch his scrap as they head up towards the inner loop.
And checking real quick to see if he had... he had an incident in the carousel. Don't know that we need a replay of this, but just a wheel spin, and he clattered into the inside Armco from it. He is back out and running after getting a couple quick repairs and returns to the track. Riding on board with Hugh Haycox, looking up at David Rossi for one more position, finds the grip to the inside of the corner. What a move, but he's going to have to do it the long way around through the toe of the boot as Rossi defends the inside. Oh, and he clips him! Gets into a second time, and that bounces him to the outside. He loses the spot to Morelli. How much damage did that give him? His suspension took quite a thwack.
I think they might have got away with that, but that was, in my opinion, a bit of an aggressive move by Hugh because he still had the car to the inside of him. I don't know if a spotter said he was clear, but he wasn't.
Yeah, you could see there from above. You're right. He was chopping down hard. Unfortunately, Rossi had not pulled behind him by that point. So the number 12 retains 9th place, and Hugh Haycox's number 9 car now falls back to 11th. Ever since Pawlowski had his mistake, the lead has extended. It is 2 seconds back to Olenek, and Zeitweger has been very clear of anybody challenging him.
The same could not be said for 6th place, where Ian Haycox has Daniel Sadro all over the back of him now.
You're absolutely right. And boy, they've lost touch with Kika ahead. They were very close before. So the elder of the Haycoxes starting to lose a little bit of touch and being put under pressure from the number 5. Oh, and a mistake, though, will clear him coming through the chute. Got a little close to the back of him. Daniel Sadro, unfortunately, having to catch the car and keep it out of the barriers. And his opponent. Ooh.
Oh, we just had another spin, actually. I think it's the same corner. Oscar Garcia has gone around. And when he was still sliding, I think he had a little bit of contact with Marlon Williams.
He did. We're on the replay. Just touches the left rear suspension. Hopefully, Oscar doesn't have to throw that car in the trash. But the 14 does get it going.
And the second car, we'll get another view of it here. The second car who got by him cleanly was Pascal Malenfant Tremblay. And I want to give him a shout out because Pascal must have had his work cut out for him today because he's running a quiet race in 13th, but hasn't been quiet all day. He's missing the whole front hood on that car.
And so we have to duck away from him because Rossi and Morelli still close together as they come through the 90. Hugh Haycox watching from the popcorn position. They come up through the S's, building up speed. So get up to nearly 170 miles an hour, 175, almost 180 before they hit the brakes. Morelli not going to be able to take advantage this time.
And now they work their way through the big bend rather, with Rossi still leading. You're giving me a hard time about saying Oscar trashed it. So. But, oh wow, and Rossi almost trashing it, really letting the rear end slide there at the front of the track.
The temperature has not changed, but as the race has gone on, I suspect the tires are starting to get a little bit slippery as they come out of the toe of the boot. Morelli not able to take advantage of a wide line from Rossi. Instead, it is Hugh Haycox coming back at the two of them. Right on board with Hugh, looking ahead, another big slide, and once again, nobody able to take advantage. Hugh Haycock's poking and prodding. This is starting to look like a matter of time. The contact that he had earlier doesn't seem to have slowed him down at all. Both of them squirming under power.
Oh, and Morelli a little bit too deep through the turn there, and Haycox is going to take advantage, go down the inside through the final corner and make the pass stick.
Wow, brave but bold. And Haycox is going to manage to get himself into 10th now through that. Their squabbling has lost them a little time to Rossi up ahead, but we saw before that Hugh looked like he had pace on both drivers. Let's see how long it takes that number 9 to climb forward and start to challenge our Season 3 F2 champion.
Update down in the pits, Oscar Garcia, who you just saw spinning a moment ago, is now down pit road. Oh, we got a lap car letting the leaders by here.
Bill Tyler, who has come back out from his repairs, just trying to get some safety rating, I suppose. Running in 23rd.
I don't think safety rating's what the guys around 10th place are after right now. Of course, that's the nice thing about these official series. You're not going to lose any points from bumping into one another.
Absolutely. As we continue to watch Haycock's Hugh try to chase down Rossi. A couple of our drivers have gotten back out after repairs. We mentioned Gerard. Johnny Bell has returned. He's running in 20th. And Colin Bentley has also come back out onto the track. Urquhart and Boscus have retired. Oh, it looks like Garcia's returning too.
Look at that at the top of your screen. Your race leader just making it even harder for him to be caught.
Could we get a 2 for 2 for Sightweger in the opening rounds? Now, we say newcomer. He is a newcomer to the broadcast series. From what Nick was telling me, he does run some of the other races. Clearly has decided that it's time to join the Saturday Championship as we watch the Austrian work his way through the inner loop.
The Rossi-Haycox battle is back on, Joe. Rossi just let Hugh Haycox by on the front straight, it looked like. Rossi must have had a bad exit from the final turn, but let's see if he returns the favour now, because he's got a nice run on him going up a hill. They're coming up to the inner loop, and Haycox is the one in front. Rossi trying to get the position back that he just lost.
He takes a little bit of a look, but nothing happening into the inner loop. The thing that I was making noise about is, I don't know if we can get the replay at this point, but coming through the carousel, Rob Olenek had the lapped car of Garcia spin right in front of him and get parked in the middle of the track. Thankfully, nobody hit him. As we come back to the battle for fourth, Ian Haycox has since fallen behind. I wonder if that damage is hurting his pace. They're also going back by lap traffic. That is Oscar Garcia still. Kika on the chase of Gary Teal for fourth.
Just to give you an update, and you can probably see it on the left side column, but you see Billy Wright isn't really making a whole lot of progress on that Ian Haycox-Daniel Sadro battle. Granted, if Haycox and Sadro start scrapping in the closing laps, that could accelerate the closing distance, and maybe Billy Bob could do something with them towards the end.
Sure, that's what Billy Bob's going to be hoping for. As we rode on board there, looking back at Marco. Climbing up the hill yet again. There's not many cars on the iRacing service that aren't flat out through that section. This is definitely one of them. You got to feather that throttle. So it was a wild ride trying to take it up through there. Thankfully, haven't had any issues that we've seen thus far with the drivers in this race hitting the wall through that section.
Actually, we did about a minute ago. Philippe Gerard had a crash going on the straight line down towards the inner loop. He's had to tow it to the pits. Unfortunately, there wasn't anyone around him, and so it was just a single car incident.
Oh, something happened to Sightweger.
Leader, yeah, oh, your neck, to the lead.
And he got the wall. This was down in the toe of the boot. See, this is Morelli that we're looking at. Sightweger, here it is right here. Oh, he just avoided the wall. From my angle, it looked like he caught it, so no damage. Boy, Olenek has got to be thanking his lucky stars. The door opens, he steps through. Great catch by the Austrian. Now we got a battle on our hands, Sam. He's clearly the quicker of the two, but not by a large margin. That 2.5-second gap was not growing very quickly. I think Rob's got a legit shot at taking this home.
Well, I think Stefan might be thinking otherwise because we've got 3 laps left to go. He's right on his tail as they work their way up a hill. Well, we know Stefan is fast on his own. What is he like in traffic? Is he a good driver at making a pass happen? We haven't seen an answer to that so far today. We'll find out in the next 2.5 laps.
Olenek's first win in this series on the broadcast races came at Tsukuba, of all places. Very different track from this one. Much faster, much larger. Is he fast here? Fast enough to take the win? Sightweger within 0.2 of a second and pressuring the New England driver.
Well, Rob Olenek is no new boy, so he will have dealt with pressure before. He's also no slouch either, hasn't number 2 on his car for a reason. He's got a high I rating, but one thing that he does have that Stefan doesn't right now, of course, is the lead of this race. And Stefan hasn't been able to do anything this lap. In fact, he loses out a little bit as they come back onto the main course. And when Rob comes by the start-finish line in just 1 corner's time, they're going to kick off 2 laps left to go. And Stefan, if he senses an opportunity, he's going to have to go for it if he wants to win this race today.
I'd say he needs to get closer if he needs that opportunity, though. He's fallen back to about 0.5 second. As you mentioned, that mistake coming out of turn 9 was costly. Can he reel him in up the hill? Olenek has indeed got a very good I rating. It's in the 4K range, and it's not just because he's a one-car specialist. We've seen him race over in the Camel Series. Occasionally, he hops over in the Lotus 79. He loves these vintage cars, and he might be able to take a win here in round 2 to try and see if he can get another championship. Coming through the inner loop. Sightweger trying to gain time, but he does not. In fact, he loses a little.
Yeah, and the reason I'm reacting to that, Joe, is the way Olenek was gaining time through there was being very liberal on how much of a curve he wanted to take. If he does that too much next time around, he could have a slowdown penalty, and if that happens, this game over. Stefan will get by.
Meanwhile, 4th place, also close. Gary Thiel and Marco Kika. I think Kika maybe had a little bit of a look. He got close in the carousel, but looks like no, he just was getting up to the gearbox, didn't attempt to pass. As they now work their way through the toe of the boot, he's setting himself up. He is close, but he doesn't get the launch off the corner.
So a lot of battles coming to a head as we're about to start the final lap. Olenek working his way through the penultimate corner now. I think we got a little bit of cloud cover on the racetrack. That's going to build up a grip. Let's see if that changes the game a little bit. As Olenek comes down the main straight. Next time they come by the line, the race will be over. That's in 1 lap's time. Who's going to get there first?
Rob Olenek, a little hot into the 90. He had built it up to 0.7 of a second at one point. That mistake cuts it back down to 0.4 of a second. Sightweger trying to capitalize on any little crack in the armor, and he may have just found one. He's closing very well. It was a bad run up the hill from Rob Olenek. He's going to have to go defensive down into the inner loop. Stefan looking around the outside, going through here side by side is going to be difficult. He's going to try it, but he cuts the course as Rob Olenek gives him space. He has to slow up, and that might be the saving grace. How much is Sightweger going to lose? No, he loses way too much, and Rob Olenek starts to streak away.
And I think what happened there is he got a slowdown penalty, and I don't know how many monitors Rob runs with, because if he was on a single monitor, he might not have known Stefan was in the grass. So he did very well, though, at giving Stefan his half of a racetrack. Stefan was the one who got it wrong, and Rob is going to be the one who comes out on top. But battle for fourth, by the way, continues, with Teal still ahead of Kika. Kika hasn't been able to do anything with him so far, and he's running out of chances.
He really is. You could see him just staying right underneath him. This is where he was bad last time. And once again, wheel spin just denies him a chance as he gets a horrible run up the hill to the heel of the boot. I'm not sure there's any more good spots for him to try and pass unless he gets a mistake. Meanwhile, we got to go to Rob Olenek. What a surprise for the New Englander. He didn't lead all but 3 or 4 laps of this race, but the number 2 is going to finish in first here today with Stefan Zeitweger taking home second.
Roman Pavlovsky will get third. Who will get fourth? It looks like it's going to be Kari Teal. Marco Kika throws it into the final turn one more time, but it's not enough, and he's going to have to settle for fifth. Sixth and seventh also close on track, with Sadro just holding off Ian Haycox.
But when did Sadro get by a Haycox? I'm not sure that Ian was behind him last we saw. And Billy Bob Wright is not going to finish. Not sure what happened to him. I'm trying to see if I could find it. Oh, it was coming out of turn 9. He bent it on his own on the final lap. Oh. After that fantastic work that he had done coming through the field.
And the big problem for him here is that even though it's a single split, there were a lot of cars here, a big talented field. 16 cars finished on the lead lap, so that will drop him from, what was it, 8th or 9th place. He was running comfortably on his own. It's going to drop him all the way down to 16th, I believe, in the finishing order.
Yeah, wheel in the grass caused it. But that is the last of our finishers coming across the line now, so we are going to a break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews. If you stick around on screen, you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC.
Of the best sim racers, $100,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? This is the most competitive and sought after season in iRacing World Championship history. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Esports Super Cup.
Welcome back to Watkins Glen International. We just watched round 2 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series, and our winner came all the way to 3rd. But both positions that he gained, Rob Olenek got from the driver ahead, making a mistake. Pawlowski first, got him into 2nd, and then Zeitweger got him into 1st with only a couple laps to go. Stefan did finish 2nd, tried to challenge him on the final lap, but that cost him in the end, going off in the inner loop and getting a slowdown penalty. Pawlowski did take 3rd, with Gary Thiel having a fight all race long, but still finishing 4th. Marco Kika was the one chasing him and rounds out your top 5. Dan Sadro with a nice 6th place finish, and then the elder Haycox, Ian, finishing in 7th, just ahead of his son. Hugh Haycox takes 8th, which is exactly where he started, interestingly enough. David Rossi manages 9th with Nick Morelli in 10th.
In 11th position was Marlon Williams, and then how about the shout out to Pascal Malenfant-Tremblay, who finishes in 12th place in the number 22 car, and I think he was missing half the front of that car for most of the race. Don Good did well, and he comes home in 13th place ahead of Giulio Forcolin, down in 14th position. Last car on the lead lap was Colin Coker, and now we enter the list of drivers who ran into difficulties. Starting that list will be Billy Bob, who spun on the final lap and finished 16th. Gary Anderson, not really sure why he's all the way down there. Maybe he just didn't have a pace today, down in 17th. Now you get to drivers who we did document their tribulations. Was Oscar Garcia down in 18th place ahead of Johnny Bell and Colin Bentley, rounding up the top 20. Philippe Gerard down in 21st there, the Bill Tyler, Philip Urquhart, and Xavier Bustos.
We have our winner ready to talk to us, Rob Olenek. Rob, I think this race was a testament to never giving up. Both of your passes happened when the drivers ahead made unlikely errors, and you capitalized. What was going through your mind each of those times that happened?
Yay! I don't know. I don't know. It's the same. Last night's race, I was racing with Jamie Hall, and we both did the same thing in the lead, spun. So there's a few corners here where it's really easy to lose the rear if you just miss it a little bit. Almost lost it on the last lap. Totally screwed up. The S's coming up through there and gave him a run. I had to go back and look and make sure I left him room. I almost thought that I pushed him off or something, but it was just lucky, you know. The least amount of mistakes won today, I guess.
Well, my dad always said I'd rather be lucky than good. So I guess sometimes you got to take what you can get. Still, this is a big help in the championship. It seems like you and Stefan are shaping up to be the main rivals without Mick and Michelle here. So are you looking at championship number 2 potentially?
The only way I would get it is the same kind of stuff happening. Stefan, I can tell. I mean, I've never seen him in the car till last week, and he's already a little faster than me. Like he could on each of our good laps, he could pull a little on me, and I'd have to have a hero lap and him make a mistake for me to keep it like right there. Roman's, we were the same exact pace today. It seemed like. I think he's also got another shot at it, and anyone does really. I mean, anything can happen. Still so early.
Absolutely. We'll have to keep an eye on things as the season progresses, but we've been watching closely to see who has the pace. You certainly seem to. But the next round going to be very different from our first 2. We had very fast tracks here in the opening 2 races, and now we head to Detroit. Tight, slow, and very punishing. What are you thinking coming into that one?
I'm so excited. This is my first time driving at Detroit. It's one of my favorite tracks. I don't know what it is. I think it's the walls. It's kind of like Bathurst going up on the hill, and I'm really looking forward to it. I like tight tracks. I think that suits my skills better. The really fast tracks, I don't know. I don't do as well. Like my pace isn't quite up, but on the slow tracks, like I think it was what's Suba. I don't even know how to say that track, but yeah, like I got a win there. I think that was my first 49 win, and that's super tight track, and I think that was why. Like I tend to do really well with a lot of the slower, tight corners.
Indeed, it was your first win, and we talked about that on the broadcast, how different it is to this one. Well, congratulations on another victory, and we'll keep an eye on you as the season goes on. Hopefully, we'll see some more action from you over in Michigan.
Rob, I have one more question to ask before you go. You mentioned that you didn't know if you'd ran Stefan off a track in the inner loop there. How many monitors do you race with? Was that single monitor?
I'm in VR, so that chicane, the bus stop, is one of my least favorite places in all of iRacing to go side by side through. And I don't know, maybe all of us don't practice going offline through there as much, so it's kind of a gamble. You want to leave the guy room, but it's so easy to not. And it felt like, because how much you cut on the left side, it felt like I was a little too far to the left, and I had to go back and watch it on the replay after, and it looked like I left him room, which I'm happy with. I didn't want to, get a win based on me pushing him off the track.
All right. Well, thanks, Rob. Go enjoy your weekend. Take away, Drip.
Yep, see ya, guys.
That was our winner, Rob Olenek, the only one going to talk to us today, apparently. Nobody else has come to the interview booth, and so that means we'll get to close it up. So, once again, a big thank you goes out to the Lotus 49 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage, but also it goes out to iRacing for putting us on IESN. Make sure and subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network. Then you can watch the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series each and every week. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Sam, not Mick, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check out our social media. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel, Facebook is Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram is GSRC_Graham. We mentioned we're just hopping over some of the lakes here to Michigan, to Detroit. That'll be Saturday, September 28th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. But we also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. See you on the track.